All right, for one more ride, here we are. Ram and the Straight Shots are back. Welcome to another episode of the New York Power Hour. Speaking for myself, I am Ram, joined by Peter and Luke as always. But today is just a little bit different because it is Luke's birthday.
It is, yeah, sure.
So, first off, we definitely want to take a moment to say happy birthday to you, Luke. We're always happy to have you. Peter put together this beautiful graphic using a beautiful man.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Ram. Yeah, it's number 29. It'll be the last one before I'm 30. So I've been told to enjoy being 29 because 30 sucks.
This is true. As a 30-year-old, I can attest.
Happy birthday, King, from Chris Cardona. It's nice when you can get a Red Sox fan even turn around and wish you happy birthday, isn't it?
Nah, yeah, Chris is good people. Chris is good people. Yeah, it's all downhill from here.
Well, it won't be downhill until next year, and I can prove that to you right now because if you know Peter, and you do know Peter, he must have done something else besides this for your birthday. And so I hear the fear in your voice, and I like that.
As you should. But I will say, Luke, we're not the only people that wanted to wish you a happy birthday. There's somebody else extra special that wanted to wish you a happy birthday.
Being the proficient level Yankee fan that you are, some calls were made, some text messages were sent, most of them not answered. But messages were sent out on your behalf to do something special, and Peter was able to put something together for you that we wanted to share with the class for your birthday.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ivan Nova, and I'm going to record this video to Luke from your friends at Best Damn Sport. It's a privilege for me to take the minute and wish you a happy 29th birthday. I hope this one is one of the best birthdays in your life. You can enjoy with your family and your close friends. It's a privilege, like I say. Thank you guys for reaching out. And I also want to ask you, Luke, why your jawline is sharp enough to cut glasses? It's something that I would like to know in one of your comments if you're able to, send me a message back and let me know why. So take care, man. Take care of your friends. I know they love you and they take the time to do this for you. As I say, it's a privilege, it's an honor. And I hope this one is one of the best birthdays that you can ever have. So happy 29th birthday, my friend. Good luck, guys. Thank you.
How much did that set you back? That's all I want to know.
Actually, he did it for free. He liked the idea so much because you have to now tell him, and this could have been lost in translation to him or something, but he's really curious about this jawline that cuts glass. Like, Ivan Nova is legitimately curious about your jawline. And I feel like as a Yankees fan, the least you can do is answer that man. He is so courteous and you can see the enthusiasm that he provided. I love Ivan Nova now. I absolutely, I cannot say enough good things about the charm and genuine energy that Ivan Nova provided for this. So first off, really and truly thank you, Ivan Nova, for that. But Luke, you've got to answer the man. Right? As a Yankees fan, I feel like it would be really messed up if you just left him hanging like the Yankees did.
What was the question again?
I'll play it again if you want, but he wanted to know about how your jawline was sharp enough to cut glasses. He didn't know how that was physically possible. I will gladly bring that back though, because I thought it was outstanding.
No, we don't have to watch it again.
We don't have to watch it. Let's do this again real quick. Actually, let's.
It's a privilege, like I say. Thank you guys for reaching out. And I also want to ask you, Luke, why your jawline is sharp enough to cut glasses? It's something that I would like to know in one of your comments if you're able to, send me a message back and let me know why.
So I just want to know, on behalf of Eva, I also am curious, but I understand as a non-former MLB player, just a guy from New York that you wouldn't share the secret with me. But I would think it would be really good for you to share that with Ivan Nova.
You want me to explain how my jawline cuts glasses?
Cuts glasses.
Please share with the class.
Yeah, I mean, and if you don't want to share it on air, I will give you the means to reach out to Ivan Nova personally, so you can have that conversation. And I think it's Ivan Supernova did such a nice thing for us. We really appreciate him, and it was great to just see your face when you didn't know it was coming, and to watch you kind of in real time. I'm going to send out. So before we get into actual talk, I did send out into the world the invite link. If anybody wants to jump on and come talk, we're going to be talking Mets, Yankees, some Giants and Jets, mainly about the trade stuff that went on today for the Mets and the Yankees, but we will talk about other stuff. I completely agree, Chris. I think it's outstanding that Luke is not used to being shown unconditional love, and it's beautiful how uncomfortable he is from this. I really, really love that.
It's just very unexpected. It's very unexpected. And, first of all, I want to express my gratitude to Ivan Nova for, wishing me a happy birthday. I mean, that's a huge surprise. And, I always loved Ivan Nova as a pitcher for the Yankees. And, and I'll say too, thank you to, both, you and Peter and, for setting that up. I'm really going to have to think on how to respond to that. Do I really just go into a lesson on how genetics work, or, do I talk about how I've been working on my jawline for the last 29 years, just special workouts, and kind of give you guys the secret of how you get a jawline like this, And
a little happy birthday handsome from Ty as well, by the way.
Thank you, Ty.
I feel free to. By the way, answer that as whatever way that you'd like. I know that you're proficient in multiple languages, so but if you need any help with Spanish, Chris Cardona has been helping one of our writers do some translations. He'll gladly translate an answer for you if you want to. If you want to make sure that it gets across properly, that he understands exactly how you do what you do.
Yeah.
I could do this for a whole nother hour, by the way. I'm not going to, but I really could, because I'm a world-class pain in the ass. I just want to be real clear about that. So
keep it coming. Just keep it coming. We could do a whole hour of me just being uncomfortable like that. That's exactly what I want.
Well, that's a good transition to the next. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no. The other thing is that, of course, the problem with us doing the New York Power Hour so late is that most of our conference is asleep. And so as much as I wanted to rally some guys to cause you some more ruckus, it may have to be something that happens a little bit later on. But I think that was fun enough, at least to watch you live react to Ivan Nova.
No, I mean, it was super cool, just very unexpected. And again, thank you guys for putting that together. And thank you, Ivan Nova, for responding.
Well, as we move back to this screen, because I think it's important for us to stay. I'll remove Ivan Nova now, and he can hang out. But as we stick around here, this is the important part. We have a lot of things to discuss. A little bit more on the Mets side than the Yankees side. So as not to torture Luke so much, we will mix it up a little bit as well. And we can talk a little football too. So again, I put the link out for anyone. If you want to just stop in and say happy birthday to Luke, you can also just comment it. I will gladly highlight it on screen. But if you want to talk about actual Mets and Yankees acquisitions, we can do that too, as we will on here. So we'll start off with the smaller side. And I say that for fun, because reality is that, and these are the Yankee acquisitions for what has happened in the last 24 hours or so. Now, it may not seem like much, and I assume it's because of the fact that they were looking for some depth. By the way, before we go on, happy birthday, Luke. Best wishes. Keep up the good work on here and stay sharp. That's sweet.
Thank you, Tanya. I don't know who you are, but thank you.
That's sweet, Tanya. Thank you. That one's from my end. She always watches, and I appreciate that she took the time. That's so sweet.
A friend of Ram is a friend of mine. So thank you, Tanya.
I appreciate her. It threw me off for a second too. But the new New York Yankees, we've got former Met and once highly touted draft pick Ahmed Rosario and Austin Slater. Now, Yankees didn't give up too much. They're looking for depth here, right? I'm going to say almost obviously that there's probably more acquisitions on the way for the Yankees, right? Because I can't imagine that where they are, that they're just going to pick up depth. Because if they're adding depth, they're planning to go for it. So I assume they're not done. I assume a Suarez, a big reliever, might be on the table, which we'll get to, right? But is there anything about these two guys that you want to highlight before Peter starts making jokes about the fact that Ahmed Rosario was a former Met that hit a walk-off home run against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium?
There's not really much to talk about with these two guys. It's just kind of like what you're saying before. They're really just depth pieces for the Yankees. Kind of give them a couple more options. Rosario gives them more options in the infield. Slater gives them a little bit more options in the outfield. And the Slater one kind of makes me scratch my head. I know Judge is hurt, and I'm not even going to go as far to say that he's a replacement for Judge, but at least can kind of fill in while he's out. But the Yankees outfield is already so crowded to start. So I don't see the need for Austin Slater. I know we joked before the show, his secondary position is being a pinch hitter. So maybe that's where he thrives. Maybe he's just, really good at coming up in the 7th, 8th inning and getting a clutch hit. I don't know. You already have Trent Grisham, who's, the most clutch player in the MLB right now. So do you really need Austin Slater, secondary pinch hitter? Rosario, like I said before, I think Rosario makes sense. He can play shortstop. He can play second base. He can play a little bit of third base. I think he can play the outfield too, but I might be wrong on that. But just gives you another veteran utility player. I know Peraza has kind of been that utility player, and I think he's really been below expectation. So I think this just gets another veteran presence for us. Obviously, I'm not sure if there's another graphic for Ryan McMahon, but I think the Ryan McMahon pickup over the weekend was much more understandable than these two.
Right.
There was an obvious need for better defense. There weren't a lot of shortstops out in the market. We could touch on Volpe later, but not a lot of shortstops in the trade market. We've talked about it in previous shows. McMahon fills a need at third base, and he's a plus defender. So the Yankees got what they needed out of McMahon, and you have two more years of control with McMahon after this. I know it's $16 million on the cap for the next 2 years, but you bolster the defense, which has been a real hindrance for the Yankees over the last couple of weeks.
So I'm gonna be real honest, Luke. I forgot about Ryan McMahon, which is a shame because I do own him in the CBO league, and
we actually share him, like
us and 6 other guys. But he's a solid player. I know some people were making fun of his home and away splits. I don't honestly read too much into that when you play for Coors, but at the very least, he's a solid defender, which is. You guys were sorely lacking that at third base. And it's, as a Mets fan, it's funny to think you guys have Ahmed Rosario. Like I say all the time, the happiest moment of my life with him was when I no longer had to pretend he was a good shortstop. But he's a solid player. He's a veteran. He plays everywhere. Obviously, the plan is to not have him play many games in a row. So it's spot start here or there, fill in, pinch hit for guys, sub in for defense. Kind of the same thing with Slater, but on the offensive side. And also the fact that you mentioned Judge is going to be out for a little bit. So he's literally just a warm body that can play the outfield. So I think we all expect the Yankees to continue to add. So it's not a terrible start, though.
Yeah. I feel like I've known Ahmed Rosario for like the last 15 years, I swear to God, because I feel like he's been in the Met system forever. And so we were hearing about Ahmed Rosario forever. He can play a little outfield. He is primarily an infielder, but he is going to do exactly what you were saying, Luke. Like, he's going to give you that depth. And depth infielders are not bad. I do think he's been hitting better than Peraza can provide. So I think this is a fine acquisition for what it is. And he was just kind of existing over with the Nationals. But I mean, his OPS this year was, I think before the trade, about 736, which for a starter, you might want a little more. But for a guy that's supposed to just sub in and be your bench guy and play some defense, good. You know, I mean, like I'm happy. So I like Amed Rosario. I think that acquisition makes sense. The Slater one, I do agree with you. I don't really know exactly what they're going for. I mean, maybe they felt like they had a lack of guys on Baseball Reference whose primary position was pinch hitter. I don't really know. Like they just felt like they couldn't hit that
secondary position.
Secondary position, right? But I feel like they kind of, I don't know. Like, did they feel like they were lacking something there? I mean, Slater's not a bad player. And maybe they're fear of some kind of injury or something like that. But for the most part, I don't know, that Ryan McMahon moves me more than these two, I will say. But I have to ask you then too, because this is going to come up as we talk a little later. Do you feel like the Yankees are kind of shopping in the bargain bin a little bit?
Yeah, I would say so. It just seems like they're just kind of dipping their toe in. Maybe getting ready for big day tomorrow, just kind of holding back their big pieces, seeing how the market's turning and seeing who's available on the last day, and see who they can get at a reasonable cost, right? But you've addressed one big issue with McMahon and the defense. You've added a little bit more veteran depth on the team, and I think you and Peter may have mentioned it. When I saw the Austin Slater trade, one of my biggest fears is that the Aaron Judge injury is a lot more serious than what they're making it out to be. So yeah, if that's the case, then yeah, adding a fourth outfielder makes sense. You're probably not going to start Stanton in the outfield, even though he said previously he'd be willing to play the outfield. So he's just kind of locked in that DH spot, and now you have Grisham in center, Bellinger in right, Dominguez in left, and then Slater would slate in as your fourth outfielder.
Yeah, and so I do think that was kind of what came to my mind, and I didn't want to say it because I don't want to wish bad on anybody, but the kind of idea that if you're getting a bench outfielder with the way Grisham has been playing, which again has been pretty good, above average, more than you could have expected from him out this entire year. Right. If he's going to slot in and play some more, and if Judge is going to be out for a while, you do need the bench outfielder, but then that fear is, okay, Judge may not be back in 2 weeks. And I think that's a tough one because it does put the Yankees in a tough situation. If Judge is not coming back before, like, let's say late September, or you don't really have a timeline on him, you can't necessarily buy just to buy. Because right. The Yankees need Aaron Judge. They absolutely need Aaron Judge to be any kind of a force going forward. And that's not me trying to insult the guys on the squad. I think it's just a realistic assessment that they need Aaron Judge to be able to do some damage. At the same time, if Judge is going to come back and you miss the deadline to pick up actual help for him, it sucks. So I do feel like it's this very unfortunate timing for this injury because it puts the Yankees in a position where they're going to have to just guesstimate and say, all right, we do think we'll get him back in 2 weeks, so we're going to push. And the fact that they've acquired multiple names, Rosario, Slater, McMahon, even if they're not big name acquisitions, the fact that they are acquiring makes me feel like they do think he'll be okay and they're just kind of covering their asses. But at the same time, I sense, because the Mets also have this hesitance here, I sense a hesitance to maybe move the biggest names in the system. Like, I haven't heard Lombard Jr. thrown around at all. And to Spencer Jones's credit, the only time I've heard Spencer Jones being thrown around is by the fan bases themselves saying, hey, the Yankees should trade Spencer Jones or move him up. Yeah. And so I think that's the right thing to do. They might believe in Spencer Jones more than the general public does, and there's nothing wrong with that because they're the guys who've seen him the most. But I don't know how big of a move that we see coming out of this deadline from them, but I don't necessarily know if I blame them at the same time because, like I said, if there's really a bunch of question marks when it comes to Aaron Judge, it is a really tough decision to make, especially when your game's down in the division.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even if you take the Yankees at face value what they're saying, they do expect him to be able to DH sooner than he's going to be able to play the field. So obviously, I guess he said that he'd be willing to play out there. But you really don't want literally just lost his name. Your DH.
Stanton.
Thank you. You don't want Stanton.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike Stanton. You don't want him there. So even if it's Judge DHs and Slater's in the outfield, like you take that until Judge is healthy enough to put the field again.
Yeah, no, and I think Ram, to kind of address from the prospect perspective. Lombard, I think they're probably hesitant to move. I mean, he's your number one, and the way that Volpe has been struggling, really, do you want to give up a top prospect who could be Volpe's replacement in a year or two, right? The Spencer Jones side, I think you touched on it well. If the Yankees are high on him and they think that he's developed into an MLB player and can help the team down the stretch, then yeah, they're not going to move him, right? But on the flip side too, I mean, if y'all remember last year, the Yankees were knocking on the door for some of the big names at the trade deadline, and Spencer Jones was not an attractive name to a lot of organizations. So I'm curious if that's still the same rhetoric this year when it comes to other organizations, looking at the strikeout rate, looking at the swinging strike rate, and really balking at trading for him.
Yeah, and I'll tie into that on something on the Mets side that we'll get into too, because we're going to talk about the Tyler Rogers trade, and Drew Gilbert was a part of that trade. And I can be one of those people to tell you, to be very clear, that the perceived Drew Gilbert trade value is not how organizations were valuing him. He came to the Mets as a big acquisition or a big prospect, and people were looking at him and saying, this is maybe a fourth outfielder now, because he is a 25-year-old in AAA who may not have made it up this year and is Rule 5 eligible next year. So trade value to what people might think, because they think they're prospect hugging, and not to be rude about it, but like sometimes it's really easy to get into that. It's hard because you don't necessarily know what teams are doing and how they perceive people. Like I was telling you guys, I've been having conversations about certain prospects, and certain guys who have achieved, like Ben Rice, right? And what does Ben Rice's value have? Right. And I don't think, I know that people were talking about, Ben Rice will get this and that. I don't even think the Yankees want to move Ben Rice. I feel like they want to keep him and just let him do what he's doing, because I feel like Ben Rice's highest value is to the Yankees. Sure. It's one of those things where, like, hey, you do need a bat. You need an offensive guy. If Ben Rice is as good as advertised, if Ben Rice is an 800 OPS bat and you have 5 years of him, the hell are you trading him for? You're keeping Ben Rice, right? This is a guy who's going to step in DH.
Yeah, and I think Rice and Spencer Jones kind of fall in that same boat where it's like, okay, I have Paul Goldschmidt right now, but he's only signed through the end of the year. Right. I have Cody Bellinger, who plays the outfield. I only have him until the end of the year. If these are two guys that I think are going to be the future of the team in Rice and Jones, then yeah, I'm gonna run these guys out to the end of their contract. But then these Rice and Jones are going to be their replacements next year. Possibly.
Yeah, I think this trade deadline is also going to say a lot about how they feel about Spencer Jones, because the Yankees are big on their guys. If they think like Volpe hasn't been moved, right, and even if he's not necessarily producing right now, but generally my thought process here is this: if they think Spencer Jones is part of the future, he won't be moved at this deadline, because even though I agree, I remember hearing about the fact this value was a little bit lower last year. Right now, Spencer Jones's value is at its highest. So it's a matter of, if they move him, it's because they themselves don't think that he's going to be a winning contributor for them. If they keep him, I do think this year it shows that they say, all right, Jones and Rice are guys that are going to be Yankees for the next 5-6 years, the foreseeable future. We expect them to be here and produce, and we want them. So I think the Spencer Jones conversation is going to be an interesting one in the next 24 hours, because if you see him get moved, then it really means the Yankees just thought, okay, he's not a part of the future. Because like I said, Lombard hasn't been touched. I do think they look at Lombard as this is the heir apparent to Volpe, because Volpe's not working out the way that they wanted to. Fine, you do that. So maybe Spencer Jones is a guy that steps into DH, maybe him and Ben Rice rotate between first base and DH, because Stanton also is on a bit of a time clock.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have Stanton 2 more seasons after this one, and his contract. He has a weird contract. His contract becomes more and more team friendly as the years go on. Actually, his cap hit goes down as the years go on. So I mean that's always good. The thing about Spencer Jones is they've been working him at first base, but he's primarily an outfielder as well. So he does have that flexibility too.
Yeah, but I feel like trading for Slater almost solidifies the fact that you have no plans to call Jones up this year.
I don't know if it solidifies it. And I'll have to look at Slater's contract too. But maybe it's one of those things because I don't think I'll have to look, but it doesn't seem like they gave up much to get Slater.
I don't think they did. No, it was literally just it might have been a player to be named out of their cash deal because I think that's what it was with Rosario. Right,
and I think for them it's just sort of low risk. Keep him around for a couple of weeks, and if they have to, if they're on a roster crunch, he's the first guy out. But again, if my fears are come to fruition and Judge's injury is a lot more serious than it's being made out to, then his position on the team becomes a lot more crucial.
Right. But I also want to mention the fact that I went out of my way to say nice things about Griffin Herring last week when we were discussing Yankees prospects, and the Yankees brass immediately shipped his ass out to Colorado. So I don't know if somebody in the Colorado front office is watching this show. And
they absolutely do, because I don't think any other podcast talks as nicely about the Colorado Rockies than we do.
I firmly believe that might be a possibility considering you care that much. And I just want to take the time to say that Denver, you've got a beautiful ballpark. And if you need someone to work in your scouting department, I'll do it for free. So, they
might actually take you up on that.
I would do it. Denver's a beautiful place. Now, switching courses for a little bit here, because the Mets also picked up some guys today, and they picked up a third guy, so he's not on this graphic. Greg Soto is not on this graphic, just as Ryan McMahon wasn't. So we were just working with today's stuff. I appreciate that you took perhaps the most normal photo of Tyler Rogers pitching that you possibly could have to throw on there and not use the Marge crumping one that I threw out earlier. But so the Mets, with the Phillies acquiring Joan Duran from the Minnesota Twins for this year and another 2 after that, they made a big move. The Mets had Tyler Rogers early in the day and also acquired Cardinals closer Ryan Helsley. Now, both of these guys are rentals. They won't be Mets at the end of the year unless the Mets decide to re-sign them. But as Peter has lined up here, Diaz, Helsley, Rogers, Reed Garrett, Brooks Raley, Greg Soto, and Ryan Stanek, this might be on paper one of the best bullpens the Mets have ever put together, if even for 6 months, if even for just a few, half a season type of thing. But man, this is, I don't say that very often. It's one of those things where I get a little bit hesitant to say, wow, right. But this is kind of an LB the Show type of thing here where you've put together some real lockdown relievers. I mean, Helsley to Diaz is serious work. And this kind of works in multiple ways for the Mets. First off, we've had issues with starters not going far into games. All right, fine. Load up the bullpen. So playoff time, if they only go a few innings anyway, we're fine. We're going to lean on a high-level bullpen. On top of that, you got a guy who has closing experience in Helsley. You got a guy in Soto who has shown that he can handle the NL East and also handle some of the batters that he specifically has to face. And Tyler Rogers is allergic to walking people. And that was one of the big bugaboos for the Mets bullpen this year, is that, and Jose Buto, who got shipped out, is that they kept freaking walking guys. So you've got some real talent coming in here. And for me, it's a little bit weird to say it, but I'm really impressed by these acquisitions. You went from having no lefty relievers to hoping that Brooks Raley could do something to now 3 solid and serviceable left-handed relievers, an extra setup man to take some pressure off Reed Garrett, and you're still got Diaz in there. You didn't give up too much, in my opinion, and that's a discussion we'll have in a moment. But I feel pretty good about this. Peter, I'm expecting you to say the same.
I love it. There's so many good ways you can work with this, and like, you know, Diaz was starting to approach maybe getting overworked a little bit. Well, that's great. Now you have Ryan Helsley. Say you move Ryan Helsley to the 8th spot and he doesn't like setting up. That's fine. That's what Tyler Rogers does. You already have him there, and Helsley kind of just become your second closer. Reed Garrett, I love as a guy in the 7th. He's fine as an guy in the 8th too, but I love him as a 7th. I think that's when he works the best. Brooks Raley's another lefty. Gregory Soto is also a lefty. And then Stanek, he shows flashes. He's very inconsistent, yes, but when he's on, he's very good. But it also can be fickle. One of our earlier episodes that we did this year talked about how the Mets had an overabundance of starting pitching. Now it seems like they have none left. So obviously that's a way you can look at it. But I'm not looking at it that way. I'm looking at this is, in my opinion, the best bullpen the Mets have ever had since I've been a fan. Everybody is great. We went, like you said, we went from having no lefties to 3 lefties. And Brooks Raley appears to be back to where he was before he got hurt. So that's fantastic. You know, the fact that the pitchers, except for David Peterson, can't go longer than 6, this is really going to help that. And then come playoff time, really the biggest thing is what are you going to do come playoff time? Because you also, at that point, you assume that Clay Holmes gets added into the mix of the relievers. Maybe he's more of your long man since he's already kind of he'd be stretched out. But yeah, David Stearns, you know, Mets fans earlier in the day were doing the, you know, the normal sleepy Stearns stuff, like, oh, David Stearns is sleeping. No, he traded for Tyler Rogers, and I do not believe it was an overpay. And the Phillies got Duran. What does he do? He gets Ryan Helsley, who is already a fan favorite because he thinks the chop is stupid and the people that do it are stupid. So good for you, Ryan Helsley.
Yeah, and so let's roll into the returns here real quick as we switch around. So Ryan Helsley, a rental, we sent over Jesus Baez, Nate Dome, and Frank Elisalt. Now, in certain metrics, Frank Elisalt wasn't a ranked prospect. Dome was in their top 20. Jesus Baez was somewhere around number 8, right? And Helsley being a closer with experience. I mean, last year he saved 49 games. This is a guy who is a legitimate closer and coming over. I mean, I believe he comes out to Hell's Bells because of Helsley. So, you know, if you got Hell's Bells coming out into trumpets, it's going to be a fun night at Citi Field. So I very much appreciate what they did here in acquiring him. I think this is fair. I mean, the Mets may have, I don't know how to say it, but they had an interesting deal with Tyler Rogers earlier. I know that a lot of people were saying it's an overpay. I'm going to go into some logic about why I don't think so at all. But as for this one, even with half a year remaining, it's funny for me. I don't think this is an overpay either, but I feel like this cost was a lot more than, because we're giving up the number 8 prospect, and this is a guy who was on the rise in the Mets system in Jesus Baez. This is a guy who could become somebody, in my opinion, and I think he'll develop fine with St. Louis. Out of the guys that we gave up today, and that's between this deal here, and if I switch over to the Tyler Rogers deal real quick, which I will, right? So this, if I had to tell you the name that I was most worried between these guys of becoming somebody that we regret trading, I think it's Jesus Baez. I think Jesus Baez, I think Jesus Baez is the one that I would say, oh, I wish we didn't have to give up Jesus Baez. So, and again, neither of these deals, in my opinion, are overpays. But I do think that if there was a prospect that I was worried about, I'd say, okay, Jesus Baez. But all the discussion was on this deal, and they were talking about the fact that they felt that the Mets overpaid for Tyler Rogers. And for me, I actually think that's pretty out of left field. I think it's wrong. I'm not saying the Mets got him cheap, because I think I'd just be lying if I said that they got him cheap. They didn't get him for free. They gave up players. But I don't think this is an overpay at all. And I see you nodding in the corner, Peter. You agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of names there. So there's a lot of name recognition here. But if we look at both trades, Blade Tidwell, he has the potential to be a back-end starter at best. That's all well and good, but you have 3 other starters in the Mets system that are projected to be 1, 2, and 3. So you're fine with cutting bait on Blade Tidwell, who also at this point has not proved himself as a starter. He got the first crack at it. Drew Gilbert, like you said, yeah, he was hot in July. I think he had 7 home runs this month, which is a lot. But overall, he's trending downwards. And it doesn't seem like the Mets trusted him to play center field, which, considering at left field you have Nimmo and at right field you have Soto, there wasn't much of a path for him. Jose Butto, well, I did really like Jose Butto, and I think there was a chance that maybe they cut the Butto starting experience shorter than maybe they should have. He did walk a lot of guys, and the most important thing is that he did not have any options left. And with Drew Gilbert as well, he was going to be a Rule 5 guy next year if you didn't put him on the 40-man. So you had to make your decision right then and there. As far as the other trade, which I agree Baez is the best guy, I think, in both of these deals that the Mets gave up. He's primarily a shortstop. Well, who do the Mets have as shortstop? In the system, you have your number 1 ranked prospect, Jet Williams, and then you have a guy, Francisco Lindor. I don't know if you've heard of him. So if he was going to come up, he was never going to come up as a shortstop. And in your system and on your team, you have 2 guys that are expected to be there for a long time. So again, these are guys you trade. Let's be honest. No matter if you think it was an overpay, if you think it was an underpay, what really matters is what the Mets do this season. They're rentals. So if the Mets make a deep playoff run, say they get to the World Series, make it to Game 7 of the NLCS, and both of these players played amazing, I'm fine. I'd give more players for them. If they stink it up and the Mets disappoint, then everyone's going to shit on the trade. So it just depends on how Helsley and Rogers pitch.
So do you have any strong opinions on this, Luke, before I go into a little mini crusade here? Because I just want to make sure that I'm clear.
Yeah, no, I think so. Go back to the Tyler Rogers trade. So I think Peter hit the nail on the head here. I mean, a lot of it is just name recognition, right? Like Blade Tidwell and Drew Gilbert. Like people can gravitate towards those names because they were big prospects, right? Like the 3 of us can sit here and nod our heads and say, yeah, they were at one point top prospects in the Mets organization. Drew Gilbert was a huge name in the Astros organization. I can't remember whether he was a part of the Verlander trade, right?
It was either him or Scherzer.
Yeah,
they got Gilbert and
I think he might have been with him and Acuna for Scherzer, but I'll double check that for you real quick.
Okay. Yeah. And again, like, he was a big name. Tidwell, I think the Mets drafted him as well. And he developed through the farm system. So, I mean, it's really name recognition there where the value is coming from. Again, people recognize Jose Butto.
Because he was the Verlander deal, by the way. You're right. Because he came from the Astros organization. You're right.
Yeah.
I was Clifford and Acuna came. My brain just kind of worked. I'm like, Clifford and Acuna were the other deal, but go on.
Yeah. So Butto, people recognize him, starter, long reliever, decent fantasy value. He's kind of flamed out over the last month. And I know, Peter, you've had your frustrations with, or I think it was Ram actually over the last couple of days with Butto. But I guess the overpay here is the number of players that you're giving up for Tyler Rogers. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm looking at Tyler Rogers' Savant page. It's off the charts. It's absolutely off the charts.
That's the thing. Yeah, like I'm gonna break into it because like this is another one of those things where, but like I'll let you finish because like Tyler Rogers is a lot better than people think he is. No,
and initial reaction, yeah, like I think Tyler Rogers, and I'm like, okay, he's mid, right? Like he's a mid reliever. But if you look at his underlying numbers, his fastball run value is 96th percentile. And his fastball velocity is in the first percentile. Like he doesn't throw hard, and yet his fastball is super effective.
He's in the 100th percentile for barrel rate.
Yep.
With the fastball that he has. I just want to be clear to people. Like I had this fight over the David Peterson thing because I feel like we get so in love with the hard throwing, dominant guys who can lose their shoulder at any minute, right? Which I get it. I understand. If a guy comes in and he's throwing 102, you're like, oh, wow, that's better than the guy who throws 91, right? I agree. But it's so easy to get caught up that you forget that there are very under-the-radar productive players.
So, and I, think about it too. I mean, again, baseball is such a game of chess, right? You go into a game and you have a guy who's throwing mid to high 90s, right? You see them over 2-3 plate appearances, you get so adjusted, and then now all of a sudden you throw Tyler Rogers in, who's throwing 80 miles per hour and coming from a submarine slot.
Yes.
It's a total game changer as a manager to be able to turn to someone who can do it so accurately, right? His walk rate is in the 99th percentile, right? So you have someone who can give you a different look from the bullpen at a different speed and do it accurately. I mean, the fit is amazing. I guess for me, the overpay is a 34-year-old rental, right? Who's not going to close games out for you, right? Because you've always had Diaz, right? Diaz is always going to be your ninth inning guy. And if you had any inclination that you were going to get Ryan Helsley, which it feels like David Stearns did, now it seems like it's a bit of an overpay. And now it just seems like you've given up all of this for a guy that's going to pitch the 6th or 7th inning, right? Or rotate in the 8th inning. I guess it gives you a whole bunch of depth, but I guess the positive I'll say here, and this kind of goes to the depth. You have a bunch of guys who can throw in the 9th inning now.
Can I do
right?
some breaking news? Red Sox are finalizing a trade to acquire Steven Matz, old friend of the New York Mets.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. He's coming back to the East Coast. That's good.
Chris Cardona, you're getting some breaking news right now as the Red Sox are going to acquire a former Met. The Yankees acquired former Met Ahmed Rosario, so the Red Sox says we can do you one better. We'll acquire former Met Steven Matz. And
Chris is very happy about that.
I would be excited too. Steven Matz, I think, was a former first-round pick, crafty lefty. I mean, we've seen what guys can do. Now, okay, so I want to break into the Tyler Rogers deal because of the fact that I do think the prevailing opinion right now is that it's an overpay, right? And I'm glad you spoke on it, Luke. So before I go on, and this isn't to challenge you, I'm just curious, what would you have deemed not an overpay? Like what I feel like, because I feel like in this day and age, because you were saying it's not so much the talent they gave up, but it might be the fact that it could be that they don't need an arm of that level right now because they have so many other choices. Do you feel strictly the overpay is based on the fact like they are abundant in options, or do you feel like
they're abundant in options? I think it's just the number of pieces that they gave up, right? Like, in my mind, it should have been Buto and Tidwell, or Buto and Gilbert. Like, I wouldn't have given up all three for Tyler Rogers. I also don't know who else was knocking on San Francisco's door to try and get Tyler Rogers. But I mean, if I missed out on Tyler Rogers because I offered two prospects or a solid long reliever, possible back into the bullpen guy, plus a mid-grade prospect, and someone else outbid me on that, I don't think I'm going to lose any sleep over that.
In this case, I would. That's why I think it's interesting, because there's not many times I get to, I think, run to the mountains and kind of scream about the fact that I feel like the Mets targeted a guy that I personally see a lot of value in. I've gone to the wall to defend like David Peterson because he is a Met, and I'm like, all right, I think that people underrate him. Tyler Rogers gives me that same energy, and I'll break into why here. So there's a couple things about Rogers that I want to highlight. Now, first off is the fact that we've talked about the fact that, Joan Duran got moved, and he is a late inning guy, right? But I want to pull this up for the sake of reference. This is just from this year, right? This is just from this year. They've pitched a similar amount of innings. ERA plus is actually favoring Tyler Rogers. His K rate is lesser, but not horrible in comparison to Joan Duran. And his walk rate is insane. He has walked 4 batters in 50 innings. 4 guys in 50 innings, right? So I really like Tyler Rogers. Now, I'm not going to go on any kind of crusade against Joan Duran. I'm annoyed that the Phillies got him. He's a good reliever. And the fact that he's there for 2.5 years, I'm not going to break into some kind of thing about trying to say that Rogers is better than Duran, because he's not, right? And the fact that Rogers also has the handicap of the fact that because of the way he pitches, you can't really use him in extra innings, because soft contact kind of sets him up to be, if you don't think he's going to strike guys out, sac flies, moving guys over, it puts Rogers at a disadvantage if there's someone starting at second. So he's kind of got to be a guy that you bring in to start the inning empty. So I acknowledge that much. That being said, one of the things you brought up, Luke, that I do want to piggyback off of, because I agree, in today's game, to have a submarining left-hander who's a soft tosser, different arm angle, completely different arsenal of pitches towards the end of the game, it's really uncomfortable, because we even have in our own pen guys that will give you now different looks. You've got Soto, who's a guy that'll give you fastball slider, right? Brooks Raley's figuring things out with like large breaking, but he can run the ball up to mid-90s. Tyler Rogers just going to kind of sit there and be weird. And it does help, because in a playoff situation, if anyone's ever played LMB The Show, it works the same way, man. Because if you're in there and you're thinking you're facing a flamethrower and then this guy comes in, he's soft tossing you, it doesn't feel the same. Your timing's messed up. You're confused. It's odd. So like, it's a great fit for a competing team. And I really like that. But on top of that, too, some other things that, Luke mentioned his Savant page. If you haven't seen Tyler Rogers' Savant page, I'm going to give you an opportunity to take a look at this right now. Right? So this part is about targeting Tyler Rogers. This is ridiculous for a guy that doesn't throw hard. I mean, you have a walk rate in the 99th percentile, hard hit rate, ground ball rate, barrel rate, 94 percentile and up. Average exit velocity is 99th percentile, XER rate 99th percentile, while your fastball velocity is in the first percentile. You figured something out. Tyler Rogers has figured something out. He understands how to pitch. And I love that. I absolutely love that. You can see this here too. His whip is under 0.9. I mean, this is really, really elite level pitching. And I understand this stuff doesn't pop the glove the way that we expect it to, similar to the David Peterson thing. But this is a guy who understands how to pitch. And has made a beautiful job of improving over these years. I mean, you can even see it. It's not like he's been underexposed. Just looking at the image here, 68 games in 2023, 77 last year, and 53 this year. This is a guy who has been out there, and his numbers have improved year over year. His whip has improved. That's actually crazy. His ERA has gone down. This is not a guy that you would expect to be that type of pitcher, but he is. And he's very good and very underappreciated. He has 20 holds this year. And on top of that, too, so before because I just go on like gushing about Tyler Rogers as a guy who rosters Tyler Rogers, right? I'm going to swing back over to this deal and what we gave up and why I don't think it's an overpay. So Buto is a guy that the Mets obviously liked and gave him some time, and they moved him out of starting to be a long arm and a multi-inning reliever, and he provided value in that way. However, his walks have gone up this year. He has not looked like the same pitcher this year. And if you're pushing for World Series contention, this is not a guy, with all my love and respect to Jose Buto, that you want to go to in the late innings of an important game the way he has been pitching this year. This is a guy who's taking up a 40-man roster spot, would not be optionable, so you cannot send him down, right? And he's struggling to show that he can manage multiple innings or regular innings or leverage. If this is a team that's World Series bound, if this is a team that wants to go deep and the bullpens are what matters, Jose Buto is not part of that squad, so he's gone. Drew Gilbert is a 25-year-old who is still in AAA, who would have to have been added to the roster, the 40-man roster this year, or he could have been Rule 5. And because with his fourth outfield potential, he's toolsy, he's fun, he's gritty, somebody's going to take him in the Rule 5. And the Mets did not want to put him on the 40-man. And the way that Carson Bench has developed, they see Carson Bench as an answer in center field. Drew Gilbert's no longer your answer. All right, we'll send him to somebody who on paper feels like we're overpaying for their 34-year-old reliever. You can take Drew Gilbert too, because we were going to need to get rid of Drew Gilbert. We were going to have a roster problem, and we were going to move him out. Blake Tidwell, I do feel like they intentionally gave him an audition earlier in the year to see what they got from him. He also struggled with walks. And so the Mets said, you know what are we going to do with him? Because if we're in compete now mode, maybe he spot starts for you in 1 or 2 games later this year, right? But if Tidwell can't figure it out, what are you doing with this guy? You're not putting him in the pen. You have better options. You're not going to put him in the rotation because you have better prospect options and you have better long-term options. Right? So these are guys that could have each not been on the roster in 4 months. Realistically, you would have wanted to get rid of Jose Butto because you can't option him and he's not one of your strongest options anymore. You don't necessarily know what to do with Tidwell. He's kind of your quad A pitcher right now, and he doesn't look in a way that makes me think that we're losing out on much. And so it seems like a lot on paper, but realistically, the Mets might have moved multiple years of an average middle reliever, a guy that could be a middle reliever, and a fourth outfielder for a couple months of somebody that might make a difference in the playoff race for them. So for me, if I'm talking about overpay and I'm talking about the fact that I'm worried about something, I am more worried about Jesus Baez because I think Jesus Baez could develop into a guy in 3-4 years. And it's like, man, Jesus Baez, and it's like those PCA conversations all over again, even though he wasn't an offensive prospect because Baez is years off, right? But here, I'm not worried about Jose Butto turning into some type of ace. I'm not worried about Blake Tidwell turning into some type of ace. I think maybe they're going to be solid middle relievers. And Drew Gilbert might be fun, and he might give you some good energy as a fourth outfielder. But outside of recent hitting, which the Mets were probably grateful for because it kind of ticked his value back up, he was not looking so sharp this year. He was not looking like a guy that you thought you're going to see the future in. So I feel really good about this deal. I know that Tyler Rogers is a 34-year-old rental, but I firmly believe that, especially for the rest of this year, you're going to get more out of Tyler Rogers than you would have gotten out of any of these 3 guys. And the way that the Mets are progressing and managing their roster, they would have looked to get rid of all 3 of these guys anyway. And they just said, you know what? If these guys want them, we'll send them over to the Giants. They can make do with it because at least they'll have the years on Butto. We'll take Tyler Rogers. Everyone wins. I think it's a win-win. I think the Giants got good value for a guy that is overperforming what his pitch arsenal might be. And the Mets were able to move off guys that cleared up the 40 because they had a full 40-man roster today, right? And you would have had to move some guys off that 40-man roster. And so Tidwell and Butto were on that 40-man roster. Now, Tyler Rogers and Ryan Hensley are in those spots. Ryan Hensley and Tyler Rogers are far upgrades over Jose Butto and Blake Tidwell on your 40-man. And Drew Gilbert wasn't on your 40-man, but he was going to have to be on there, and they clearly didn't want to do it. And they're probably going to look to acquire somebody else in the coming days. I firmly believe they're getting Luis Robert. And so that would have been a thing where, are we going to have to expose Drew Gilbert to the Rule 5 and we lose him? I actually, honest to God, think this is a bit of a Stearns masterclass. I think it's a great job of getting value out of guys that you were going to get rid of. And that's amazing work because these are not secrets. They're not hiding injuries. These are not like industry secrets. Everyone knew that Drew Gilbert's going to have to figure it out or be exposed to the Rule 5. Everyone knew Butto's walk rate went up. Everyone saw Tidwell pitch for the Mets earlier this year, and he couldn't find his command, right? This is not like some kind of industry secret. He knew the values of these guys, and he was able to get a useful player down the line. So I feel pretty good about this. I feel really good, and I'm actually pretty impressed. I also think that people just sleep on Tyler Rogers. And this is a guy that's not going to get as much love because he's not coming out to the flamethrower entrance like Duran and getting cool saves. But just looking at those numbers, if you're telling me they picked up a reliever that's pitched 50 innings this year, has walked 4 guys, and has an ERA of 1.8, that's exciting. I don't care who it is. That's exciting. And then you tell me that he's funky, weird delivery, weird arsenal, throws up like the whole rhythm of the opposing team, and we needed a lefty X anyway, right? I love it. I love it. I'm big on this Tyler Rogers deal. I'm excited. So I'll say that much. That's my, my whole spiel on the Tyler Rogers deal.
Here's what I will say to reply to something both of you guys said about Baez potentially maybe blossoming into something. Yeah, that like similar to what happened with PCA. I think the difference there is a current major league player that you feel comfortable with Lindor. Right? There's nobody. Still, the Mets are still looking for a center fielder right now. So even if Baez blossoms into this really good shortstop, you at least have that comfort.
I also think he's going to third base, by the way. I don't think he's staying at shortstop. But it would have been years before he could have helped us at third anyway. So I don't disagree with you.
And then to Luke with about how it might have been too much volume. I look at it this way. Obviously, if you, like Ram touched on it a little bit, if you take out the name and just put the stats out there, this is absolutely a player that a team that has World Series aspirations would want. And if you told me you didn't get this player because of you didn't want to give a Budo, or you didn't want to give Gilbert, or you didn't want to give Tidwell, that would piss me off.
Yeah, my only retort to that is you could use those players in other deals. So if the Mets are still shopping, save Gilbert or save Tidwell for another deal, right? Like if you are in on Luis Robert, right? And you need another piece, another piece to add on. And for the White Sox, getting Drew Gilbert kind of makes sense, right? You're giving up your star out, you're giving up your star outfielder. You're gonna have an opening in your outfield. Drew Gilbert would fill that role. You'd be able to have him on the 40-man roster. You'd give him the opportunity to play in the majors. That would make sense. Like that would make sense for the White Sox. So that's my only thing is that, I totally agree that the value of those players have definitely diminished. The name recognition is there, which I think for people saying, oh, this is such an overpay, I think that's where that's coming from. I'm not going to go as far as say that it's a super overpay, but I think there's just too much volume for Drew Gilbert that you could be using in other deals.
By the way, the return is pending, but Eugenio Suarez just got sent over to the Mariners as we're talking. I just want to be clear. So the Mariners have now gotten, what did they pick up? Naylor the other day? And now they have Eugenio Suarez. So they're trying to contend over there in Seattle land. And I respect that. The return is going to be out soon. So once we see the return, I'll throw it up here and we can discuss it for a moment. Even though it's not New York, this is a guy that was linked to both the Phillies, our rival over there in New York, and the Yankees. But assuming Ryan McMahon was kind of the third base acquisition, we didn't expect the Yankees to pursue Suarez anymore, right?
No, and I was, I go, and I think I said this on the cast the past couple of weeks. Suarez is great. Suarez is a great bat, not a great defender, and that's not what the Yankees need right now. Their defense has just been such a hindrance for their team. I think McMahon's a much better fit. You have him control for another 2 years. I had Suarez going either to Seattle, Milwaukee, or New York. So I feel like I finally got something right. I feel like I finally opened up my crystal ball and it was finally correct. I think it's a good move for Seattle. I think it's actually a great move for Seattle. I think they've been very deficient in the third base position, especially in terms of hitting. I don't think they're getting as much productivity out of their hitters as they should, largely because of T-Mobile Park. I know Cal Raleigh is really just carrying the team, but it gives them another bat at their disposal, and makes them a little bit dangerous for the Houston Astros. They have a really great rotation. I would say the best rotation in the MLB. So get a couple bats to complement that and go out and win the AL West.
Yeah, I absolutely think that I appreciate that they're going for it, because I know that Seattle can be kind of wishy-washy with actually pushing. They feel like they've got something together. They were still getting a standard like first half slowdown from from Julio, right?
Sure.
And so it's one of those things that like I feel for them sometimes, but I'm glad they were able to put something together. I'm also glad that he's not going to the Phillies because I did not want to see them get better. The talk about it is that the Phillies are done adding to their bullpen, but they still want to look for maybe a bat. They're in on Luis Robert. The Mets are in on Luis Robert. I think that the Mets might be able to edge that out. And I'm hoping that they'll do it. And something I do want to address, this is a good point. You were like, hey, all right, fine. Even if it makes sense, you might have been able to like keep Tidwell for something else. Like you might, if you're pushing for that. And I think there was a tweet that I sent to our Discord earlier that I'm going to bring up that I want to discuss because I do think it's important to talk about. And so, and credits here to Lance Brzezowski. Like I'm not hiding the name because this is his thought. But you can see here, it says, it feels like a big overpay, but the Mets are a top pitch and development organization sitting on the highest minor league KBB by a decent margin and second hardest four-seam velocity. This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but organizationally, after Steve Cohen invested in the pitching lab, after Verlander and Scherzer and those guys says, hey, we thought the Mets would be better off. We thought you could compete with the Astros and the Dodgers. Steve Cohen took that to heart and built a goddamn pitching lab, and the Mets have gone really heavy in investing in pitching. And I know that some people were saying, oh, hey, the Mets are not that good of a pitching development organization. Trust me, they are much better than you think. And I'm real proud about that one. They know what they're doing. And I do firmly believe what Lance is saying here. The result of that is knowing they could produce 3 to 4 more Blade Tidwells and Jose Butos at will. I agree. I mean, in this year alone, the Mets have seen a jump in pitching prospects like Jack Wenninger, Will Watson, right? And Dome was another guy himself, right? Santushi's a crafty lefty. And that's this year alone. The Mets get to draft again next year. They get to sign international free agents again. I'm not worried. And I think this comes from a position of confidence, so it's really weird. But I feel like the Mets were operating in this manner. I feel like this is part of their thinking. I feel like they sat there and said, we'll move Blade Tidwell and Jose Buto because next year we'll have another Blade Tidwell and Jose Buto. And then maybe we'll move those guys too because we can produce another one. So I do feel like that confidence leads into that type of decision-making, which I respect a lot. And I think it's crazy now, but yeah, we'll see what happens in terms of tomorrow because of the fact that we will have more trades to break. I'm sure Friday night is going to be the Best Damn Sports trade show. So they're going to discuss some things more in depth, like Eugenio Suarez and the non-Yankees and Mets trades, right? So we've hit our hour, and I'm not willing to cut off. I don't know if you guys have a few minutes we can keep talking for a little bit because there was some other stuff I wanted to bring up.
Let's keep going. The only thing I'm going to say, I just don't understand the rhetoric of the Mets not historically being good at producing pitchers. Because I feel like in the mid 2000s, that is what they were known for, right? You developed Jacob deGrom, right? You developed Noah Syndergaard. You developed Zach Wheeler. You developed Matt Harvey. Steven Matz, right? Like the Mets historically have always done a good job at developing pitching. And I know, yeah, Steve Cohen has invested a little bit more, but I always feel like they're a good organization for pitching development.
The Dodgers got involved in that Zach Littell trade as well, by the way, for anyone who's listening. It's the Dodgers, Rays, and the Reds. The Reds are still receiving Littell. The Dodgers are getting some prospects, including former Met Paul Gervais. He's being sent from the Rays over there. We can always assume that any one of those names in there, if you roll the dice, is going to turn into the next superstar. So you can always take a look at that before Friday and add them to your fantasy squads because somebody's going to be good. We don't know who yet, but somebody between the Dodgers and Rays guys is going to be good.
Oh, and one last thing on Rodgers and Helsley, and I don't have the stats in front of me. I apologize. That's really good podcasting. But they both have really good numbers against the Phillies, who you're currently in a dogfight for the NL East. So, again, David Stern's masterclass.
No, I absolutely love it. And, the one, because we can maybe avoid talking Giants and Jets. I think that we can avoid, Peter's been praying to avoid that. But since preseason starts tomorrow.
I do want to say something about the Jets. I want to yell at the beat writers. Can I yell at the beat writers for a second?
Absolutely.
Okay. So a couple days ago, there got reported that my brain stopped working. Who's our quarterback's name?
Justin Fields.
Thank you, Justin Fields. He got carted off. He can't walk. He got carted off the field. Something with his foot. So of course, the Jets fan in me. Oh great, season's over. It didn't even start. I didn't even like him, but great, now we're cooked. So of course, everyone's worst case scenario, because that's what we do as Jets fans. So then 2 hours later, it comes out that he went on the cart, but he didn't. It wasn't the back. He just sat in the passenger seat. So these are two very different vibes. And then it was just his toe. He just hurt his toe. Someone stepped on it and it hurt. So Jets beat writers, there's a huge difference. I don't know if you guys know this, Jets beat writers, but there's a huge difference between someone got carted off and someone wrote shotgun on a golf cart. If we could just do better with our wording, that would be really cool. Thanks a lot. Bye.
I mean, he did literally get carted off.
Okay, but again, there is a difference between you see it all the time when someone gets carted off and they're in the back of that, it looks like a mini pickup truck, and they're on the back and they're sitting in the thing and they have two doctors on either side, and then just somebody just sitting in the passenger seat of the golf cart. Two very different vibes. Am I wrong?
I want to take a moment to commend the Jets beats writers, because I think it's really important that we spent some time here, 2 to 3 minutes max, talking about the Jets beforehand, and Peter would go on a limb to wish for the doom of Justin Fields. But we found out in that 2 hour span that Peter really cares about Justin Fields, and he wants to see Justin Fields.
I'm not letting you turn. I'm not letting you turn.
Well, Justin Peter, if you didn't want to see Justin Fields as the Jets quarterback, would it have devastated you the way that it did for those 2 hours where you thought Justin Fields was
dead? It was annoying. It was annoying.
Pretty devastated. You were pretty devastated. I might even have a message where you said, "I'm devastated."
That I definitely.
I'm pretty sure I have a message.
I would never use the phrasing "I'm devastated." You're so full of shit.
You're pretty devastated. You seem pretty devastated, and
you literally went into our private Discord and just said that you were sobbing after finding out.
Definitely.
And look, that reaction.
You told us that you were curled up in a ball in your room about the Justin Fields.
Listen, I won't say exactly, but anyone that has had any discussion with me in Discord, especially in a more private setting, definitely would know that is not the wording I would use. Chris, please show the proof. Please, Chris, give me the proof right now. I'll show it on my screen, please.
But I think it's sweet that no matter what you said outwardly, that you care about Justin Fields as our quarterback. And I think that's a good thing, because I like the idea.
Quarterback, you're a Saints fan.
I like Justin Fields as our quarterback. I live in New York, so I get to pick a football team every now and then. No, if I'm rolling with anybody, it's the Jets. I've talked about this. I only understand misery, so I can't go to the Giants because they've won Super Bowls in recent memory. So that I can't do that. Yeah, that's really uncomfortable for me. I don't know what that feels like. I'm supposed to only be with teams that are miserable when playoff time happens. So the Jets are great for me. But I love Justin Fields both as a fantasy quarterback, and I like the idea that he's in a no pressure situation with the Jets, because and this is my sincere thought about the Jets and Justin Fields. If he is above average, which he looked slightly above average with the Steelers because they were gaming the system towards him, then great. You get to develop Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson and figure some things out and let them move towards something. And then you can use Justin Fields at a discount compared to $90 million towards Aaron Rodgers that you would have to pay for those type of guys, right? Or he is hot ass on a 100-degree New York day, and you can smell the trash 5 blocks down, and then the Jets get to draft a quarterback. So, I'm okay with it. And Justin Fields plays a very entertaining brand of football, so I'm okay with this. And lest people forget fantasy-wise, because I'm in fantasy football leagues with some of you guys, DJ Moore had really good fantasy stats with Justin Fields. He does find receivers. He may not be able to gun it down the field Drake May can't gun it down the field. Some other guys can gun it down the field. Some guy that could throw down the field.
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. I love that you picked the guy that can't gun it down the field. Of all the guys you picked, noodle arm quarterback, game manager.
We can't talk shit about Jared
No,
Goff.
Jared Goff is clutch.
The greatest quarterback in any of our fan groups.
I love Jared Goff. I just acknowledge the fact that if I'm talking deep arm, I'm not talking Jared Goff. He's not.
I'm exclusively talking Jared Goff if we're talking deep arm.
But I firmly think it's going to be a fun year for the Jets. They bolstered their O-line.
It's not going to be a fun year.
Miserable. It's going to be a year.
It's going to be a year.
I think it's going to be fun.
Ram, you want to know what you're doing? Ram, I know you're really starting to embrace this Jets fandom, but you are doing the ultimate Jets faux pas. You're speaking with a lot of hope.
I do this every year about the Jets, right? I can go back to – I remember talking about but I'm actually more of the pessimistic guys. Like, I remember when Geno Smith got his jaw broken because he got punched, and I was like, well, that saved us a lot of trouble. Like, I know, like, I understand, but I actually like Justin Fields. I think that I love mobile quarterbacks. I think that there's something that can be found with him. I also think that the coach that we pulled over is a real hard-nosed dude who's a smart man. And I think
I've seen from him so far.
Yeah, I like him. And so, like, I think, look, one of the biggest issues with the Jets is that they were a cultural failure for a while. I mean, I watched Adam Gase be a head coach. I'm fairly certain. I am fairly certain. Whatever money I have, I would bet it down. I could have coached that roster to a better year than Adam Gase did. I am so sure that I could be a better head coach than Adam Gase. I can't stand Adam Gase, right?
You know, you're going to make me go on another rant about Peyton Manning. Fuck Peyton Manning. Motherfucker went back into the draft when we could have had him the first pick. And then our stupid owners, who are Woody Johnson is the dumbest son of a bitch in the history of football. He listened to Peyton Manning. He took Peyton Manning's advice about this offensive guru, Adam Gase. I hate you, Peyton Manning. I hate you so much.
I would never take guys like advice like that. Like if Tom Brady was like, oh yeah, that's the guy that made me good. I'm like, yeah, we're not hiring that guy. Because it's sort of like I talked about Mike Malone in NBA. You look good because you had Jokic. Jokic did not get better from you. You look good because you had Jokic. Adam Gase looked good because he had really elite talent around him. But I can't stand Adam Gase. I also hate that we get the head coaches who suck and then they go back to being their coordinators and they're good again. Like Todd Bowles couldn't fucking coach the Jets for anything. And then suddenly he's like world's best defensive coordinator again. Right? So like, believe me, I have been through this Jets torture more than I admit because I am a Saints fan, but I watch every Jets game and I hate it. But I like Justin Fields. And I think that he's actually a fun quarterback. I think there's so much offensive talent on the Jets. Breece Hall is a monster. He is an absolute monster, outstanding running back. Came back looking explosive when I didn't expect him to be back explosive for another year, right? And Garrett Wilson's a top-level receiver. There's talent. They added to their O-line. There's going to be holes. This is not – I don't even know if it's a playoff-bound Jets team. But I do think that the Jets can be more fun than I believe that they will be on paper. And I'm going in with no expectations because even if they turn around and they suck – then we'll just draft a quarterback and hopefully they just don't screw it up. Do I have faith in Woody Johnson? No, because I don't really have faith in guys whose both names are Dick. Like, it's hard for me to, like, if you told me that there was a character in a video game named Woody Johnson, I'd be like, what the fuck are we playing? Leisure Suit Larry? That's not a real person. Nobody's name is Woody Johnson. Right? Like it's like if you told me that like the Mets had a guy named like Dickie Lovelady. That's not a real person. Those things don't actually happen. So I don't really believe in the whole Woody Johnson thing. I don't know what kind of robot is behind there doing it. I heard that his son plays Madden and makes decisions on that too and gets in his ear. I'm pretty sure Luke could beat him in Madden at this point. So I'd also make a kind of an offer here as we'll move off football for a moment because I had some baseball stuff I want to finish up on. If Luke can beat your son in Madden, Mr. Hard Dick, I want you to just let him have some kind of influence in the organizational thinking because maybe, just maybe, when we have to draft a quarterback next year, we might have a guy with the rational voice in the room. And if not, at least he'll score really high on the jawline ratings. We know that much. So we can make that happen.
if I'm making organizational changes for the Jets, we're not drafting a quarterback. We are trading for Jared Goff.
Yeah.
We are absolutely trading for Jared Goff. And everyone
How old
on
is
the
Jared
Lions.
Goff now?
It's just gonna be my fantasy football team. Like that's it.
How old is Jared Goff now? I gotta be
Doesn't
honest
matter.
though, your
He's an
fantasy
ageless
team
wonder.
is based off the Lions, right? There is not a single Jets fan in existence that wouldn't swap places to be with the Lions roster right now. Right, like the Lion, and I'll tell you a funny story. One of your guys is one of my favorite players. I named one of my fantasy teams a couple years ago after Amon-Ra St. Brown because when I was scouting him for the draft, I was looking at his name, and his full name is like Amon-Ra Julian Heru John St. Brown. And I was like, I love this guy. I love this guy because he grades 80 on the name scale. You know, we don't use that scale in football, but the baseball guys know. Right? I'm like, this is amazing. That's a great name. This guy's going to become something. They're like, yeah, it's not going to happen. And I'm like, this guy's name is Amon-Ra. He's the sun god. Like, he's going to be useful. So I named my team the Amon-Ra Julian Heru John St. Browns. And it went on to win a title because that's what Amon-Ra Julian Heru John St. Brown does. He's good. And so I love the guy.
That's the Lions culture for you. Did you know he wasn't born with the last name St. Brown?
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. And you know what? His dad really thought that St. Brown would look really good on the back of his jersey, so he changed his last name to St. Brown.
Yeah, because he is named after Amon. I know he's named as Amon-Ra, but it was just Brown, right? Like his name was, I think, just Brown.
Yep. And his dad was like, "Yeah, St. Brown will look really great on the back of a jersey someday. So we're gonna change our last name to St. Brown."
You named your kid Sun God, and you gave him a cool. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm one of those people. I will go on a limb to defend him as an outstanding wide receiver. I love that he's over there. They drafted another guy that I like with a weird name, Isaac Tesla, this year, and I think he's going to be good again. Will I name my teams after that? No, because Elon Musk is a terrible person. But I do think it'll be fun. You know, it'll be fun. The Lions are fun, and I respect that. But I'm sure we'll have enough time to talk football and maybe have to talk the Giants when we don't want to. But I believe Malik Neighbors is dealing with a small injury. That is one thing I will mention. I think he's dealing with like a toe injury, and I do think that sucks. But Cam Scatibo or Scatibo, or how do I pronounce? Is it Scatibo? Scatibo. So he is impressing people in camp. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have any opinions on him. I'm behind him. I think he can do something. I find him to be a very polarizing prospect out of this draft, right? Do you guys, because we'll move off Giants back into baseball to finish up, but do you have any strong opinions on Cam? Because I think he's going to take over that Giants running back spot. I'm not a big Tyrone Tracy guy. I don't think they have much going on. I think it'll be a good year for Cam. Do you guys have any strong opinions on Scatibo?
I think he has a great last name.
I love it.
Yeah. I didn't really see much of Scatibo. I think he was out of Arizona. Yeah, he's out of Arizona State. So I didn't really catch a lot of his games because they were West Coast. I watched him in the playoff game that he was in. I mean, he's a hard runner. He's going to put his head down. He's very fast. And if you look at his numbers, I think he finished third in the end of the year voting. There was an argument that he could have won. And I guess, you know, he's up against Travis Hunter, and again, phenomenal athlete, great year. But yeah, I mean, he could have easily won the Heisman as well. I know we talked about this months ago because I know the draft was months ago. I thought the Giants had a really great draft. I thought Jackson Dart was a great pick. I'm totally blanking on the Penn State guy that they drafted. He was going to be a great edge rusher for them, great linebacker. And then
Abdul Carter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think
who looks like a menace.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Scatibo in the fourth round was, I think, frankly, a steal for them. I think it'll be a steal, and I think he's going to plug right into their offense.
I think so too, and we'll see how preseason works out. You know, we'll have some games to report on when they play. First preseason game is tomorrow, which isn't real football, but it counts for something. It's not real football, don't worry. The starters play like one series, and then we're to like the 10th stringers. So I'm not too I don't freak out like others do about it. I don't mean to be a jackass, but like it's not like the football that I want yet.
Unless you're the Jets and you decide to start some guy in the second half and he gets hurt and he's out for the whole season.
It could happen. It could happen.
Could happen to anyone. Could happen to anyone.
Things are
only the Jets. But only the Jets. And just really quick, Ram. I also want to commend the Jets beat writers for just starting the annual ritual of self-hating from the Jets. Just like, woe is me. Woe is me. And they just got that rhetoric going so quickly. The first day of training camp, and it already starts. So kudos to the Jets beat writers.
I'm glad that I forgot to include Ryan McMahon in that trade graphic.
I don't know. Well, listen, what was or was not Justin Fields on the cart and removed from the field?
Listen,
he was carted off the field. He was in the cart. He was in the cart, and the cart moved, which means carted.
He was carted off the field. He just has an amazing Wolverine X Factor recovery, and his toe's fine. I like this guy. I'm starting to like him even more than I did when I found out that you didn't like him. Now I really like the guy. I think it's great.
Listen, can I be honest?
Have you not been?
Please.
I'll be honest. If Justin Fields was on any other team, I'd probably be like, yeah, he's interesting. It could be interesting. But he plays for the Jets. So I know that it's going to be the worst possible outcome. And he's probably going to just get hurt in a tragic accident. It's going to be terrible. And everyone's going to feel really bad about being a Jets fan.
All right, so moving past Juaner Sanchez and those type of things, the last thing that I had Peter cook up was on the trade deadlines, because they haven't been done yet. A would you rather of who you want your team to acquire, and I had one for the Yankees and the Mets. So Luke, we're going to throw one to you first, because it looks like they're going to move towards the bullpen. Because Bednar, I've heard, is one of the Yankees are leaders right now. If the Phillies aren't making moves for them, and the Mariners made a move for Suarez, right? But another interesting name that came up today was Mason Miller, who his ERA doesn't look as sharp as Peter has astutely mentioned to me, because he's playing in a minor league ballpark for some of his games. But last year was looked at as a guy that was really on fire and has really, really electric elite stuff. People love him. David Bednar having a great bounce back here with the Pirates, and more than likely they're going to move him, even though the Pirates have talked about the fact that they have a huge asking price. Do you have a preference here, knowing that one is probably going to cost more than the other, Luke?
Miller is going to cost more than Bednar,
right?
Obviously, I would prefer Mason Miller, just because of the years of control that you get on top of it, and that's really what you're paying for. Bednar has been rocky year over year. I know the past couple of seasons haven't been great for him. He looks really great this year, but I would much rather Mason Miller, if he is available, over David Bednar.
Oh, look, number one, he's not a Rocky, he's a Pirate. Let's get that straight. But number two, if say you did get Mason Miller, would you stretch him back out as a starter or keep him as a closer?
I would absolutely keep him as a closer. Again, you only have Devin Williams to the end of the year, so you're looking at a possible replacement for Miller either this year or next year. Williams, replacement for Williams this year or next year. Williams was bad to start the season. It seemed like he's figured it out. In the past couple of starts, he's also been rocky, even though he's not pitching in Colorado.
Yeah, I think that the easy move here is Mason Miller, because of exactly what you said. You don't have a closer into your future. I like Luke Weaver. The Yankees don't seem to like Luke Weaver. So if they don't like Luke Weaver enough to give him the closer role, then you got to make a move for one. And Miller's a guy that you have some team year control over. I would not bring him back to a starter either. He is an elite. I know that he wants to start. I feel bad about it, but you got to keep him a closer. He's killing it as a closer. He's got great stuff to be a high leverage reliever, and it makes perfect sense. So I think this one's open and shut. I do think that Mason Miller's the easy one here. It would cost a lot, though. I think, though, funny enough, because we were touching on it earlier, if you had to move Spencer Jones for Mason Miller, would you do it?
Yeah.
Because I think that could be a win-win. I think that if anyone's going to make it, look, if Spencer Jones is mashing it right now in AAA, send him to a place that plays half their league in the minor league ballpark. Let Spencer Jones continue to mash, right? I mean, this is a guy that you've got Nick Kurtz over there. Your offense is figuring it up with the athletics. Get another masher in that lineup and start scaring the crap out of people. And I think that there's something to be done there with Spencer Jones as a major piece if his value is high enough. If not, I know the Yankees have the ability to get him. I think you would have to swing for something like that because Bednar's short term is a little older. You got it. The Yankees of old would have probably swung for Mason Miller. And so I feel like that might be where that comes from, but I think it would be an easy call for me. Peter, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I love Bednar. I want to make that clear. And he's real thick, so that's cool. But I mean, Mason Miller, he's has the potential to be the best closer in baseball. That's how good I think he could be, and he's pretty young. You do have that thing where he wants to be a starter, and it kind of reminds me of Seth Lugo. Obviously, Lugo wasn't he was a setup guy. He was the closer, but yeah, I mean, you could do so much with Miller, and I'd much rather have him with Bednar.
Yeah, and Peter, you mentioned Seth Lugo, but I think the direct comparison for me is Garrett Crochet, right? Just was a bullpen guy for what, a year and a half in Chicago. Had to get Tommy John, came back, starting pitcher, looked great last year. There was questions of whether he could handle pitching a whole season, and I think he eclipsed over 150 innings. And he's doing the same thing for the Red Sox as well. So, I mean, have him close out, have him in the pen this season, and then see how it is next year. See how he feels in spring training.
So, but you said confidently you wouldn't move him back, right? At least right now.
No. For this season, I would keep him in the pen.
That makes sense. But you'd be willing to open him up because, I mean, a comparison to Crochet makes me think that you think he could be that type of guy if they stretch him out again.
Absolutely. And, again, you think about the Yankees rotation right now and as well as next season, right? So you're going to roll back with Fried, Rodon. You're not going to have Cole back until the middle of the season next year at the earliest. You'll have Will Warren. You won't have Clark Schmidt. You'll possibly have Luis Gil. So I think there's definitely opportunity for him to make his way into the rotation during spring training. If it doesn't work out, great. He's your closer.
I like it. I think it's good logic. Peter, this one's now for you as we're wrapping up towards the end of our show here. Luis Robert Jr. or Cedric Mullins. Now, contract comes into play here because Roberts essentially is a rental because of the fact that his options are just a little bit too complicated and too expensive for people to take on. And
I disagree.
You think you do it?
I don't think $20 million is that much for for him at all. I mean, if you look to other center fielders in the league, that's not that far off. Enough at least to scare me off.
All right. So I said, do you feel like this is a guy that you would?
I mean, I might be a little bit cheeky with this comparison. First of all, yes, I would like Luis Roberts Jr., but the caveat of I understand I'm not getting the player of 3 years ago. I don't think it was ever going to be that guy again. But if you're telling me that I can get a center fielder that plays very good defense and can probably get to 20, 25, maybe closer to 30 home runs, I take that any day of the week. However, I will say that if we're just talking about on a pure stats line, very similar stats to Brett Beatty. So Ram probably doesn't want him. Ram would probably rather go for Cedric Mullins.
I think that's funny. I didn't realize Brett Beatty has the amount of speed that Luis Robert has.
Well,
how similar is his stolen base count?
No, number one, if we're talking about the Mets with
how similar is their stolen base count?
How similar is their Savant page for defense? For run save
Luis, I'm glad that you found one stat that you can compare him to. I like Luis Robert Jr. a lot. I do think that while I agree with what you're saying about the fact that you're not going to get the guy of old, I am going to buy into this mentality that he's kind of checked out with the White Sox and he's just not enjoying himself over there. I think that the talent is there for him to be a very, very useful piece. And I would take him on and then let us make that decision about the club option, in the sense that if he's good enough, fine, it's a bargain. Take him for the $20 million, right? And if he's not, he's a rental anyway, because Cedric Mullins is a rental. He is a unrestricted free agent, and he has been up and down. I think Cedric Mullins is an interesting guy because he can be like a 25-25 guy and plays good defense, but he can also be a guy that plays really weird defensively at times and also can't hit the ball for a lick. So it's a tough one. And I think both of them are readily available. I like that both of them are available because the Mets can kind of decide, all right, if we wanted Robert and he's too expensive, we can pivot. So it gives them options, especially as of this moment where neither guy has been traded. And Baltimore does need to make some moves because they are starting to logjam with some of their guys and figure things out. I'm taking Luis Robert Jr., though. I think that the upside is still there with him. And I feel like I don't know why, if it's just on vibes or based on my feelings of the fact that I've decided that mentally he's checked out with the White Sox. I think this is a guy that could come over and start mashing the ball with the Mets. He's looked a little bit more alive in July. His OPS has actually been stronger than it was the rest of the year. And so there might be something there that the Mets could unlock as well. You know, maybe a guy who saved Brett Beatty and Eric Chavez could figure some things out for what's going on with Luis Robert. And I feel pretty good about that. I wasn't going to say that. That was strictly for Peter. But I just think that he needs to get out of the White Sox organization. And I firmly believe that there's a dynamic player still in there. He is still very young, if I remember correctly. I think he's like 28, right?
Yeah, he's on the younger side.
Yeah, he's 27, right? And he just turned 27, actually. So
Ram, here's a question for you. Since obviously you think we're both in agreement, you'd rather have Roberts. To get Roberts, everyone is reporting you need to trade Mark Vientos. Are you okay with that?
No, I'm not. But I also think that for me, look, the Phillies were reported that when they asked about Duran, that the Twins wanted Andrew Painter. They did not trade Andrew Painter. They also did not trade their number 2 prospect. They traded Tate and they traded Abel, right? So Micabel and Eduardo Tate. I like Tate. I think he's a good prospect for what it's worth. I value him higher than some people do. But that's a good price to pay. But that's also not Painter and Aiden Miller, right? So at the end of the day, if they're asking about Vientos, I get it. I respect that. I don't think Vientos is the guy that goes. I mean, I would hope they could settle for Beatty and take a 4th bench guy, and that would be nice, but the White Sox probably wouldn't take him. But if it comes down to like prospect talk, the White Sox, I think, it's weird because with Duran, the Twins had some leverage because they didn't have to move him, right? They're not, the White Sox are not taking on Roberts' contract next year. They pretty much have to move him. And I want to believe that means the leverage is in the court of the buyer here. I know that the Phillies want that, and I feel like they might create a bidding war between the Mets and the Phillies, and I'm okay with that. But I'm not so confident about giving up Vientos, but I also think a deal can easily be made without including Vientos. Is it going to include somebody I don't like? Almost certainly. Right? There's going to be somebody on there that I'm like, damn, I wish we didn't move X player. But, and it'll probably hurt more than Jesus Baez because I think Jesus Baez is a solid prospect, but I'm not crying. It wasn't Benj, it wasn't McLean, it wasn't Tong or any of those guys. So, but it could be in this case, like they might turn around and say, maybe we want Sproat. And I would accept that. If you turn around and you said, hey, if you're not giving us Vientos, we need Sproat. And then we need another top 15 prospect to make this happen. I'd do it. I don't want to move on from Vientos just yet. I also feel like going to a low pressure place like the White Sox, Vientos might turn immediately back into a 31 home hitter and we're going to look really dumb. But no, I'm not about moving Vientos. There was talk that the White Sox inquired about Luis Angel Acuna, and speaking for the entirety of the Mets fan base, yes, you can have Luis Angel Acuna. You can have Luis Angel Acuna. But that also feels like one of those like Miguel Andujar and Clint Frazier situations. I can't imagine him being the pivotal part of any package for a useful player in Luis Robert. So I'm not getting my hopes up on that. But the good news is we won't have to wait too much longer to find out as this will probably resolve itself in the next 12 hours or so, right? Now, that's about all we've got for you all tonight. There's no reason to keep Luke furthermore from celebrating his birthday somehow else. But and I'm not going to put Ivan Nova back on the screen because I really wanted to, but like I feel like we went back to him twice, and I don't want to make Luke too uncomfortable to share with us his last thoughts. But what do you have for us on your, as we've crossed out of your birthday in the Eastern time zone, but what do you have as a last parting thought for us today, Luke, as we wrap up the New York Power half hour and an hour?
No, again, I'll just kind of echo gratitude for both of y'all for wishing me happy birthday. I couldn't have asked for two better co-hosts on the New York Power Hour. I know we've enjoyed the time doing the podcast, working together, but I think we've grown a friendship, and I really value that as well. So thank you guys both, and thank you again to Ivan Nova for replying back and wishing me happy birthday. That's awesome, man.
Peter, as Chris Cardona is jealous in the comments over there, what would you like to share with us as he gets over his green-faced feelings?
So I guess my parting thoughts of the episode are, I want to speak directly to David Stearns. David, they said you were sleepy. They called you washed. They said that a lot of these acquisitions that, oh gosh, I get solo screen. A lot of these acquisitions that you made just weren't good enough. And, you lost your touch with guys like Montas. I think you proved them all wrong today, David. And I know you're going to prove them wrong tomorrow when you acquire Luis Robert, because you love making trades when we're all sleeping. It's your favorite thing to do. So when everyone calls you sleepy, you're awake, hard at work making trades. So I believe in you, David. I know you're going to do the right thing. And let's go Mets.
That was beautiful. Nice sentiment from both of you. And right back at you, Luke. We love you, and we're very happy to have been able to celebrate your birthday with you. I appreciate that much.
Love you, Luke.
My final thoughts are mixed. I'm kind of scared going into the trade deadline because I love the trade deadline, but I'm also terrified that we're going to find out that we moved a guy that I have a prospect crush on. So I will reach out to the Mets fan base and just tell you, hey, breathe. Because when you talk to me about Tyler Rogers and things like that, remember that a couple years ago, we made a deal for Darren Ruff where we traded 4 players. And I promise you that most of you don't even remember what the return is. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad, Mets fans. You're going to be okay.
It was an overbuy, whoever it was.
We're going to be okay. It's all right. Sometimes the prospects don't work out. It's going to be fine. And I really hope Luis Robert Jr. is the next coming Met. Okay, so moving on from that, let's wrap it up for the night. On behalf of the birthday boy, on myself and Peter, we want to thank you all for listening. As always, thebestdamnsports.com will lead you right to our YouTube where you can subscribe for free, and we will appreciate you for free because we can't really pay to do anything else right now. But we will be happy to appreciate you in whatever way that you see fit that costs us $0. And follow us on Twitter. Feel free to jump around and always join in the shows in the future as well. We're always happy to have you around. Thank you for spending some of your evening with us. And thank you for those of you who are streaming us in the future after we may have not traded for Luis Robert and we look stupid. Anyway, wrapping that up for the night. Again, from the three of us, thank you again. Have a great rest of your